The mayoral race wasn't particularly a surprise. We had already seen the primary, and in the primary, Benningfield had a substantial lead coming out of the primary over the number 2 candidate, Tony Young. And I think there was a general sense in the city that we had been locked into this back and forth battle between 2 candidates for several election cycles, that the opportunity to have someone new, to have some new leadership, to have someone that could maybe work with the city council. The last 2 or 3 mayors haven't seemed to have had the best relationship with the city council, and so having somebody who might be able to be a little bit more cooperative, I think that's what the city was looking for, and hopefully that's what they've gotten. I think that there's going to be a little more cooperation at the local level. I think there's going to be a bit more of a willingness to try to work together. Certainly, having attended city councils for the past couple of years, there is an awful lot of interest on the city council to work with the mayor to try to attract some of the business from the new battery facility that is going to be going in south of Elizabethtown. And so I would expect for the local government to start to make a move to try to make an attractive offer to some of the ancillary industries that feed into that plant. I think there's also a lot of concern locally about the lack of affordable housing. And so you might expect for the city council and the mayor to work together to develop some strategies to bring a couple of apartment complexes or multi-family units to town to alleviate some of the housing pressure, especially if we're going to be successful in bringing in new industry. In terms of the state level, there weren't surprises. There are some things that political science say should be true, but you're never quite sure that they're actually true. So for example, here in Kentucky we had 2 propositions. Basically both propositions did the same thing. Both propositions were designed to give the legislature more power. And political science suggests that both of them should fail. But being in a political system where the Republican Party dominates and we typically assume that people listen to their leaders, there's uncertainty around that. And so the result, the fact that both constitutional amendments failed, it's not shocking, but at the same time it was uncertain. Anytime you go to the jury, you're never quite sure. And watching them fail, quite honestly, is a little bit reassuring in a lot of respects. Not because of what they meant, but because what they both did effectively was to empower the legislature, often at the expense of the people. Some people are going to be surprised at the size of Rand Paul's victory. It turns out in the final balance that it wasn't even close. I think that Rand Paul ended up with 61% of the statewide vote. And I think the size of the victory, but the fact that the Republicans maintained control of both houses of the legislature wasn't surprising. The fact that 5 out of 6 delegates to the House of Representatives from Kentucky is Republican, I don't think there was a surprise there. Even in our local level races, I think essentially all the local races went how I would have predicted it on Monday. Run-of-the-mill kind of normal election. I think in general what the broad theme is that local voters were looking for people who they could trust. They were looking for somebody who was familiar, for somebody who they felt comfortable with being in their community. And when you look at the sheriff's race or the mayor race, or when you look at Smith's success in running for re-election as the judge executive, I think most of those races come down to the sense that we know these individuals, we like them, we trust them, and we're ready to get back to some sense of normalcy where we don't always have to watch politicians the way that we did in the past.